So we have a saying in this house, and that is all my bad ideas have wheels. So I'd like to introduce you to my latest best bad idea yet, my 1976 Vanguard city car named Gale. And we'll get into why it's named Gale in a little bit. Now, this is an introductory video to the project. This is going to take me some time to get through it. So today I'm going to be given a run through of the car and what it needs and the entire process that it's going to take to get this thing back on the road. Now, the biggest component of this car, or at least the most expensive component of getting this car back on the road, is the batteries. That's what these are here for. So I'd like to give a great big thank you to Epic Batteries. They are sponsoring this car project by providing us batteries for the car. I would not be able to get this thing back on the road, at least not nearly as quickly, without the help of Epic. So big thank you to Epic Batteries. We'll talk a little bit more about what they provided when I get into what the car needs. So let's start with the story of this particular city car and how I came to get it. Now, I had actually been on the hunt for one of these things for quite some time. I had seen an article about them and a couple of videos, and I kind of got hooked. I just like quirky, weird stuff. I guess I'm channeling my inner Doug DeMuro there. But I like quirky, weird stuff, and this thing is quirky and weird. Now, the city car was arguably the first really commercially successful electric car. There were obviously things before that like the Baker Electric, but these things had a pretty long production run. They were made by Sebring Vanguard, or Vanguard Sebring, in Florida, so that's a US made car, and it runs on a golf cart platform. Now, how I came to get this one was I had been on the search for one. I had joined a bunch of city car groups, there's really two on Facebook, and there was a gal, Gale, in Nevada, in Vegas, that had 4 of these, and she needed to get rid of them, but she wanted to make sure that they went to a good home. They weren't just going to get scrapped. So I went and picked up one of these from Gale. Fascinating lady. She was actually a competitive figure skater and then was a professor at UNLV teaching, I believe it was environmental science, and had 4 of these cars. So I picked up this one from her. Now I'm in Southern California, so I drove out with a flatbed trailer, loaded this thing up, and brought it back home. You can imagine how thrilled my wife was when this thing showed up. The first thing she asked me was, does it run? No, it does not run. Nothing worked on it. The second thing she asked me was, is it gonna leak? Because it seems like every other thing I have in the garage leaks oil. And I assured her, I was like, this is great news. This is an electric car. There is no oil, there is no coolant. It's not gonna leak.
That was a lie.
It leaked. It leaked every fluid that it had in it, which was only 2 fluids. It has gear oil in the rear end, and that seal shot, so it's been leaking gear oil, and its brakes are shot, so it's been leaking brake fluid as well. But right now, let me get you close up on the car, and I'll show you the issues that I'm having to deal with, how we're dealing with them, and then what we're going to be doing with the powertrain and these batteries. Now, the first issue is the body. A lot of people seem to think that this thing is made of fiberglass. It's actually not made out of fiberglass. It's made out of ABS plastic, which is both good and bad. The bad is ABS plastic gets brittle and it cracks, and this thing is covered with cracks because over time this thing baked out in the Nevada desert and it suffered a lot of cracking. It's also got some chunks missing. You can see right here. We got some pretty big chunks missing. So we're 3D printing parts. Now, in addition to 3D printing parts, you'll see down here we had a lot of big cracks, and I've been gluing and plastic welding all of the cracks. And the cracks are just about everywhere. This is a really common crack in the A-pillar. Coming up here, we have cracking up here. There's cracking in the doors. Coming around the back of the car, we have some cracking up here. So cleaning up the body is turning into quite a project. Now the good news is plastic welding is not that hard, it's just time consuming. So I've been kind of going through one by one because I want to stabilize the body before the cracking gets worse. The wheels on this car are comically small, and the wheels that were on this thing were rusted so bad they could not be reused, which is unfortunate because the original wheels had cool little center caps. But right now we're running, these are basically trailer rims with trailer tires. Now, obviously, the outside shape is weird, but the inside has got some pretty weird stuff going on, too. So let me show you the inside, what's going on in here. Now, I'm 6'2", and I actually do fit inside this thing with, I don't know, 3 inches to spare. So I'm good there. If you're going to ride with a passenger, though, you better like your passenger, because there is not a lot of width on this big bench seat. Actually, it's not a big bench seat. But essentially what this car is, it's a hopped up golf cart. It's running golf cart components, golf cart driveline. The seat is a golf cart seat. So a lot of the stuff in here is golf cart. And that's the good news on this process, is that when it gets down to the running gear on this thing, a lot of the parts are still accessible because they used a lot of off-the-shelf parts. Now the car is quirky, but it actually has everything in it that you would need to be road legal. You have your regular headlights, you have dash dimmers. Instead of a fuel gauge, it has a voltmeter here, but instead of reading volts, it reads empty to full. It's got your regular speedometer, and amazingly, this thing has 9,584 miles on it. It doesn't have a traditional transmission. It has a contactor here controlled by a switch that controls forward and reverse. It has wiper. It has everything you really need, but there's some kind of quirky, weird stuff in here, and I want to show you a few of those. Now, if you come down here, these are your heat controls. So you notice here you've got a defroster, a fan, and a heat. Now the fan is just a little 12-volt electric fan, and you have these which pull valves. And what those do is those open and close valves that pull air, if you need heat, pull air off of the motor. So you're getting hot air off the motor blown into the cabin, which I guess is pretty similar to how air-cooled Volkswagens heat their cars. And one of kind of the legends of these cars that I heard was that the defrosters weren't actually hooked up to anything, that it was required for highway use to have defrosters, but they weren't hooked up. And although I can't confirm or deny that, these are not hooked up in this car. There is a place where the hose would go in, but there is no hose, but that might have been lost with time. Let me show you one more weird thing that they had to do to make this thing road legal. Now, to be road legal, the other thing you had to have was a windshield sprayer to clean your windshield. So there is a little windshield sprayer, but instead of having a traditional sprayer, you have this bladder bag that you fill with windshield wiper fluid, and this thing right here. This is a pump, and you stomp on that repeatedly to spray water up on your windshield. Now, additional things that I'm gonna have to do to the interior is these seats have to get redone. The floor down here is like indoor-outdoor carpet, and that is shot, so that's gonna have to get replaced. These seat belts have seen better days, but frankly, if I wind up in a situation where I need the seat belts in that thing, I think you can pretty much count me among the dead. And underneath the seats here is where the batteries live, and you can also see right there the front of the motor. So now let's talk about that powertrain and how we're using these. Now, the original powertrain on this car ran off of 6-volt golf cart batteries and to a 48-volt system. And the way it ran was an old school golf cart system which used contactors. And what that meant was when you pushed in the accelerator pedal, it would engage contactors, which would engage batteries. So every click engaged a couple more batteries. What this meant was you didn't have linear acceleration. You had kind of like low, medium, high, fast, if that makes sense. And actually on the lowest speed, what it did was when you hit the accelerator, it engaged 2 batteries, or 4, I'm not sure exactly, this didn't even come with the contactors, and it dumped some of the current through a coil which would heat up and scrub off juice, so it would give you a lower speed, essentially wasting a lot of electricity. Now, if you've dealt with golf cart batteries, you know they weigh a lot. This thing had 500 to 600 pounds of golf cart batteries in it, nearly half the weight of the car. This car weighs around 1,200 pounds, and 500 to 600 pounds of that was battery weight. Now, we are switching to these. These are lithium iron phosphate batteries, not to be confused with lithium ion batteries. Lithium ion batteries, or LiPos, have this bad tendency of blowing up. These don't do that. They don't have the thermal runaway problems that LiPos have. So when people get concerned about LiPo fires, if you're talking about lithium iron phosphate, it's not the same thing. What is great about these batteries, though, is I need 4 of these instead of a massive bank of the 6-volt batteries. And each one of these weighs 33 pounds, which means I'm dropping 450 pounds-ish off the weight of this car. And given how this car is already underpowered, that should give me better acceleration. It should also give me much better range. These batteries together are giving me 120 amp hours of power, which is actually more than the car came with stock. With it being lighter, I'm thinking 60 to 70 miles range is kind of my hope. We'll see how this actually works out once it's in the car. Now, I am planning on running the stock motor in this thing, and the stock motor and rear end and the gearing limits this thing to about a 40-45 mile an hour top speed max. So this is not highway, it's just going to be for around town. Now, I talked about those contactors a second ago. Those are gone and they're not going back in. We're going to be doing a pulse width modulator, basically a speed control. If you're into RC cars and did electronic speed controls, It's a big version of that. That'll make things more efficient in that we're not having to scrub off power to go slow, but it'll also give me linear acceleration, and depending upon which one I go with, I might get regen. We'll see how this all pans out in the end. Now, in addition to these batteries, I got a bunch of other stuff from Epic Batteries, and these guys make battery kits for golf carts. I'm basically using a golf cart kit from them. So it's not just the batteries, it's everything you would need to do a whole conversion on your golf cart to switch it over to lithium. So let me show you all the other stuff that's going to be going in this car, modernizing this whole thing's drivetrain and powertrain. This is all the additional stuff that Epic sent over to get their system running. So we've got all of the necessary cables to connect all the batteries together. The batteries will all connect to this, positive and negative, so that way we're going to have all of those 48 volt batteries coming together to give us the 120 amp hour system. Now the drivetrain runs on a 48 volt system, but the rest of the car runs on 12 volt, like a normal car. This is a 48 volt to 12 volt converter, so this will step the voltage down and give me the juice that I need to run all of the other stuff in the car, like the headlights, taillights, turn signals, and everything in the dash. The entire system is going to be getting charged with this. This is the 48 volt 15 amp charger that can charge off standard wall current. And then we've got this guy. This gives me a plug on the outside of the car. So I can plug this end into that end, mount this on the outside of the car, and have a regular plug that I can just plug an extension cord into to charge the vehicle. Now, one of the issues, or it's not really an issue, it's just a difference between lithium batteries and LEDs, is that lithium batteries don't discharge at a constant rate. You're going to see basically a flat voltage and then it's going to drop off at the end. So it's very hard to know with a voltmeter how much juice you've got left. So that's where these two things come in. Each one of the batteries has a BMS on board, a battery management system, and that monitors how much juice is coming in and how much juice is going out. So you know how much juice you have in the car. The batteries talk to this system, which then talks to this system. So this system can connect to your phone even, you see the little Bluetooth symbol, and you can see everything that's going on with your batteries. This is essentially your fuel gauge. It'll tell you how much juice you've got left in the batteries and the status of your batteries, and it's a nice little gauge you can mount in the dash, and it's not obtrusive. So I can mount this in there and it's not going to look funky. So all this stuff will hide under the dash. The only thing you'll see is this. So I do want to say one more time a big thank you to Epic for sending these batteries out. I would not be able to move on with this project and get more done on it if I didn't have these batteries sitting here. This was what I was kind of waiting for, so now we're going to get this project rolling. And if you happen to be working on a crazy project like this, or even repowering a golf cart or needing lithium batteries, I will have a link to Epic down below so you can check out them. Please support the people that support the channel. They keep these projects rolling. The plan with this car right now is, now that I've got the batteries, I'm really going to start moving on getting this car on the road. I want to get the body buttoned up enough that it's solid so I don't have to worry about it damaging itself further while it's rattling going down the road. My next big project is getting the drivetrain, all the electrical working. I have driven this thing on a single 12-volt battery. So here's the least power efficient way ever to move your car at 4 miles an hour. I've got an EcoFlow Delta, so it's DC converting to AC, AC running into a battery charger here that can put out 12 volts, running to the motor, and that will get you going about this fast. It's working! It's working! A total of like 200 feet up and down the street. So I do know that the motor works. When I drove that thing, the brakes didn't really work, so I kind of Flintstoned it to a stop. So I do have a lot of work to do on it. I'm going to be doing all the small incremental updates on my car DIY channel. It's a little side project I have, but all the little updates are going to be there. The big updates are going to be here on this channel. So you're going to want to subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more about this car and all of our other projects here. But if you want to see all the little updates of how this thing is going, check out the car DIY channel. I'll have a link below, and at the end of this video, subscribe to that. You'll keep getting the updates of how this project is going. So we're going to have it on both platforms. So I hope my bad automotive judgment is your entertainment. And if it was, please give me a great big thumbs up. If you've done a project like this, or you have any tips, because I'm kind of flying somewhat blind with this thing, leave me comments down below. If you happen to want to sponsor me a motor controller, that'd be swell too, so you can hit me up. So I feel like I'm kind of channeling a little bit of Doug DeMuro and Hoovie's Garage here with dragging this thing home. Obviously not on their scale, but right before coming out of the garage, literally minutes before coming out of the garage, I was charging batteries. I happened to see the video put up by Rob Pitts, or Rabbit from VinWiki and a bunch of other things. If you're in the automotive YouTube world or you're watching that stuff, I'm sure you've seen him. Heartbreaking video he put up. He is in hospice care right now. And by the time this video publishes, it sounds like he probably will have passed on. Just heartbreaking. He's got stomach cancer. I'm just so sad for his new wife and his family and everybody that he's leaving behind. So, Rob, this one's for you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Do all that subscribe, thumbs up, comment stuff that everybody asks for. And of course, thanks for watching.